Hello and welcome to another episode of Decoding Indian Elections with the one and only Dorab Sopariwala. Thank you. Today we're going to be talking about the Rajya Sabha elections. I know you're going to say, what about the Rajya Sabha, the upper house, all of that. But these are also very, very important elections because they do have a very important impact on our democracy. We speak about the Lok Sabha elections, but what are the Rajya Sabha elections all about? Dorab, there have been about 30 Rajya Sabha elections recently.
Yes.
Just tell us, how are they conducted? Like, how is a Rajya Sabha member elected?
It is not direct election in that you and I don't get to vote for it. By the way, what applies to the Rajya Sabha also applies mainly to the upper houses of states. So we'll take them all as one. The members of the Rajya Sabha are elected by the members of the assemblies. So the UP assembly will elect the Rajya Sabha members who come from UP. Maharashtra will elect Maharashtra. It is done by a method called the single transferable vote. Now we will need about 4 hours to explain that. But I'll tell you the great European countries that use it. The great countries, Ireland and Malta. These are the only 2 countries that use the single transferable vote. It's not difficult, it's a messy system. So that's the way they're elected. They're also elected indirectly. Now, why indirectly? This is what our founding fathers thought. They felt that Dr. Ambedkar was educated in America and also in England, but he went to Columbia. So probably the upper house he wanted on the US pattern. Not like the House of Lords or the Chamber of Princes, but an elected house. The Senate originally was elected by the members of the local house. So supposing the 2 senators who represent, say, Minnesota, were elected by the House of Representatives of Minnesota. The founders felt that these are the people in Minnesota, 100 of them in the assembly, they know what they want. So they will send to us their representatives, which is the right thing. The people don't know these things. Fine, that was the original assumption. But soon it got out of hand. Corruption started. Sometimes, you required more than 50% of the votes of that house to be elected. In the house, Minnesota said 100 people, you need at least 51 votes. In the case of Delaware, once it took them 114 ballots or something to get to that. It took them years. So then soon corruption started, influence started. So by about 1909, 1910, they decided that this wasn't working. So they brought up a constitutional amendment, the 17th constitutional amendment, to say that now senators will be elected directly. Now we became independent much later. But obviously Babasaheb Ambedkar still decided that the old system was the right system. So we have that old system of indirect elections through which we elect our Rajya Sabha members.
In these Rajya Sabha elections, the way they are conducted, it's become a back route for a lot of people to get in. What is the problem and how do we sort of make this better? Like, for instance, cross-voting.
There are certain issues like, for instance, in the recent Rajya Sabha elections in several states and several upper house elections, in, say, Orissa and in Jharkhand, the BJP didn't have enough votes to get the person elected, but they persuaded people of other parties to vote for them. Similarly, the Congress for the upper house elections in Karnataka didn't have enough votes, so persuaded BJP guys and Janata Dal guys to vote for them. So there is cross-voting. Sometimes, for tactical reasons, people will not vote. In one case in Madhya Pradesh, the election commission suddenly decided to disqualify the Congress candidate. So all these things happen, which makes the whole thing very messy and non-transparent and, I think, corrupt.
So what's the solution? How do we clean this up?
One solution, I think, should be to abandon this system where MLAs elect Rajya Sabha MPs to a system of direct election. Always go to the people in a democracy when things don't work. So now what do we do? So there is a system called proportional representation, which is followed by 28 European countries. So it's not that only 3 people follow it, but there are variations of the system. and one of them is called the list system. Now, how does the list system work? So, let us take the case of Karnataka, where we have 12 seats, and say 6 seats go each time in 2 cycles. So, in cycle 1, there are 6 seats, right? As we know, there are 6 candidates and 5 parties. Now, let us assume that the votes of the parties are 17%, 6%, 11%, 35%, 31%. Now, parties B and C get less than 16%, so they don't get any seats. And their total of 17% gets reallocated to the other 3 parties. So, after the reallocation, Party A, as the graphic shows, gets 21%. So, Party E gets 37%. Now, on that basis, how do we get the seats? Party A gets 1 seat because it's got 21% of the vote. Party D gets 3 seats and Party E gets 2 seats, making a total of 6 seats. So now what will happen? Each party has provided a list of 6 people. From Party A, the first person only on the list will get elected. In Party D, number 1, number 2 and number 3 will get elected. In Party E, number 1 and number 2 will get elected. So that is the way you fill the 6 seats. So it is not you and I are voting for this, and in the end, they are allocated in proportion to the votes that they get. So it's not an unfair system. Whatever proportion of votes you get, that's the proportion of seats you get.
So, is this going to reduce the amount of money that possibly gets passed between various people during a Rajya Sabha election, whether it's for cross-voting or a businessman coming in paying for his seat, or is there going to be less money spent? Who's going to pay for all of this?
Yeah. Well, in North Korea, they have a very good system. They get elected automatically every year for life. So you can have that system. It's totally free. Or you have a system that costs money. So certainly this system will cost you money. But the question is, how much money is it going to cost you? For instance, if there are 6 candidates and 5 parties, all those 30 people won't advertise for themselves. Their parties perhaps will put up their names. So, if I'm number 6 on a list, do you think I'm going to get elected? So I'm not going to spend any money. So I think the money spent will be less, but it will be a fair amount of money. But let's put the money in perspective. The last Lok Sabha election, as per the Center for Media Studies, cost 1.35 lakh crore. That's a lot of money. The CMS does not define the black and white component, but I would suggest that the vast majority of the rupees 1.3 lakh crore was not kosher. We have travelled across many states during the past few general elections, and in all states, there is a cash transfer from the candidate to the voters. Obviously, more in the more affluent state and less in the not so affluent states. And the candidates and the voters were quite happy to talk about it. That a candidate gave a voter some money was no assurance that he would get the vote, but not giving the money was a guarantee that he would not get the vote. The distribution of black money is very good because it makes black money white, as the money is spent by the voter on saris and shirts and mixies and TVs and scooters and consumer goods, on all of which GST is paid. The black money stolen from the people's treasury is at least partly returned, and mainly to the poor and the needy. The Rajya Sabha elections certainly won't cost anywhere near rupees 1.3 lakh crore because each individual won't advertise. Party will advertise for them. But even if it does, last year the Reserve Bank of India paid the government of India a dividend of 2,70,000 crore. So if the Rajya Sabha election costs some money, it costs some money. But the question is a cleaner system. It's a system in which you and I participate. It's a system in which one man threw money by buying 4 MLAs can't change the outcome. You and I change the outcome. So it's we have to ask ourselves a question. Here is a system that will cost more, but we know the current system is corrupted. Do we want to knowingly live? You see, we often live unknowingly with corrupted system. Here it's knowingly. We know it's a corrupted system. Do we want to live with it? Or do we want to spend some money, which is less than half the dividend the RBI gives to the government of India, and have a cleaner system? It is more disruptive in that, we all got to go out and vote instead of these 35. And of course, what will happen? The hotels will suffer because all these MLAs get taken to hotels, their phones are taken away, they can drink as much as they like, and they go home with goodie bags. all that will stop. But that also costs, but not the kind of money we're talking about. But I think we have to decide whether we want to, we want a democracy that is a real democracy, or democracy that is so corrupt and venal that it brings shame to us. The choice is ours.
The choice is ours. And I think we need to put the power back into the hands of the people.
That's right.
Dorab, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching. But we're going to be back with more of Dorab telling us and decoding India and its elections for us.